Hey, leader, 10 years ago, we put out a book called Figure That Shift Out. We're celebrating the 10-year birthday with 10 stories of transformation of people who went through Figure That Shift Out and experienced a completely new level. They didn't get there by pushing harder in the pressure. They learned how to see clearly who they are in the best and worst of moments. We could say how they could relax into their brilliance. Listen in on these stories as you consider what might be possible for your own transformation. Welcome, everybody, to the Sight Shift Podcast. We're doing our 10 years, 10 stories. As I've sketched these out to record them, this is the last recording. I'm not sure when it'll be posted by the team, but I want to introduce you to somebody who's come to mean a lot to me. I'm going to invite him into as many spaces as he wants to join me in, and thankfully he keeps saying yes. Dave Vance, welcome to the podcast. So glad you're here. Why don't you introduce yourself just a little bit about where you are in the world and what you're doing right now, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, man, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. And my name is Dave Vance, and I've served in pastoral ministry since I was 19 years old. Went to Bible college and seminary, and now find myself in a transitional phase. I serve as a VP and director of employee and leadership development for a company in Eastern Ohio, and being able to serve actually multiple great companies that are together. And it's a lot of fun to see leaders get better. And I know I've been a product of that, and I'm excited to be able to help others be a product of that as well.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I mean, this one's fun to me because we've already been doing stuff together. We did our Columbus event for Make Culture Your Edge, and you were the man with the plan to kick it off and open it up. And I feel like you've already just added so much value to me, just not only in terms of encouragement, but like, Chris, do you realize what you have here? So take us a little bit into what was happening for you that you're like, I want to go through Figure That Shift Out. I want to go through this program because you're someone who's been through a lot of leadership. I mean, your leadership experience is so varied through what you've consumed and what you've given out. I mean, we're talking to somebody here today, guys, that has the leadership chops. What for you would have been that tipping factor?
Yeah, and you know what's funny? I don't know if any of us actually think, man, I need to figure that shift out. I think most of us think, man, we've got it together. We, especially as leaders, we like to come up with our own solutions, and I think as leaders, we tend to do that. That's why we're leaders. But for me, this happened actually, and my introduction to Side Shift happened, and to you, Chris, happened at a it happened in a crisis. It happened at the lowest moment of my entire life.
Mm.
And I was in the ministry world in some ways at the top of the game. I had was a pastor of a large church, a church of over 4,000 people. I had written a book. I had was traveling. I spoke at conferences, part of podcasts and leadership opportunities. All the things that when you think about pastoral ministry and you think, man, they've made it. I really was getting to do that. We saw explosive growth, launched 5 campuses, 2 city centers, like all of this momentum that you would see. The problem was on the inside, there were things that were growing unhealthy. And while everything was full steam ahead in ministry and as a leader, inside there was corruption, there was disruption, there was distraction, there was the insecurity that was reigning supreme in me, and it overflowed sometimes into my leadership. Although I tried to cover that really well, it was overflowing into my marriage.
Mm.
It was overflowing into my interpersonal relationship with people close to me. People could tell there was something I was wrestling with, and what they and even myself would just excuse it as is, well, you're just busy, like you're just being a leader. This is the battle that you face. And eventually I found myself in this low moment, and I began to make some big mistakes. And those mistakes ended up being a betrayal of my marriage. It ended up being taking my kids through deep rooted pain. I hurt the church that I loved and served. And I left a lot of leaders that I encouraged empty. And I found myself in this low moment where there was nowhere to turn and there was no hope to get out, but to just say, I need to resign. And mind you, being a pastor since I was 19 years old, like to step away from that, I don't even know what else to do. I've never done anything else. I don't really have any other gifts that I knew of. And but what I knew was who I was. I couldn't go forward. Mm. I couldn't because I was unhealthy, and that destruction was lying at my door. And I want to just pause because the magnitude of this, I think I can say that now and not cry and not shed tears, but I have shed more tears than I ever have in my life in this season. I didn't know where to turn, didn't know where to go. I lost in a matter of moments, in a month, I lost my job and really my passion. And by the way, probably pursued it so heavily I forgot other things. I lost my house. I lost relationships. All my friends that were inside of that ecosystem now were broken down because I had to move forward. And so you lose everything. And in the midst of it, you've already lost yourself. And so where do you go, where you turn? It was one of our leaders had a connection through his business who had walked through Figure That Shift Out as a company. And he said, hey, you got to meet Chris. I know you're at your lowest moment, but I think Chris would be a guy you need to hear from. And I think in his mind, the idea was, hey, maybe you can help them out. I mean, you've been a great leader and you've walked through this dark moment. And so he was so gracious to introduce me. And so I remember the first conversation sitting at a restaurant with you, Chris, and we talked about site shift and what it was all about. And so your recommendation was, hey, why don't you go through the coaching? And so Mark became my coach. And what I realized is this is what I would say to you. The greatest shift doesn't happen in your circumstances. It happens in your soul. And what I didn't realize was at that moment, I knew something had to shift. As a leader, I thought I was smart enough to figure it out, but I needed someone to come into the smoke, into the fog and say, hey, let me show you the way. Let me give you a few steps. And so I began to meet with Mark and go through Figure That Shift Out. And man, it totally transformed everything. And it was exactly what I needed. So what really began as just a lunch to find out if this could be a future opportunity for me became actually a thing my soul so desperately needed in the midst of a fog and smoke that I've created, and just wondering where else do I turn? Where do I go?
Dave, thank you. I mean, I have to know that there are people that are listening to this and they're feeling their own permission, because you're not too insecure to admit the insecurity. And you know, I get chills from this moment because we know how much healing comes from that kind of confession. So just honoring that and stepping into this moment with you, what a gift. And celebrating too that, you know, sometimes people think like Chris is the magic, and I'm not. Like the process is the magic because it's built on ancient wisdom, and we're just cooperating with something that's worked for a long time. And that Mark, one of our top coaches, he's our operations director also, was available, and you guys stepped into this process together and formed a friendship as he was guiding you through this. And so there's just so much there that's just beautiful, and I'm so appreciative of. One of the things that was meaningful to me was how quickly you kind of grasped the real depth and possibility through going into the conversation, how we Figure That Shift Out at this deep level, at the root system of your mind that so many people skip over. What was that like for you? And you didn't even know I was going to ask this, but early on, what was the light bulb that was clicking on that you were like, wow, this can really help me?
Yeah. And you know, certainly in the midst of this, you know, God directs an organization like Site Shift, and it is through people like you, like Mark. And I think the wisdom that you've been able to put in to creating a system that you can walk through and see yourself. And when I think of sight shift, I really think it's a mirror that's giving you a true picture of yourself that then gives you a picture of where you need to be. And so it goes from a mirror that reveals all this, the insecurity, the ugliness. And for me, I think I was drowning in water in an ocean, and I just needed someone to give me not advice, not just some great points, not platitudes, but actually a life raft. I needed a life ring. And what I learned was I was unhealthy in many ways since the beginning. Like, being a pastor, I could articulate the gospel. I could tell you all the theology. I went to Bible college and seminary. I got a doctorate degree. I could tell you all the realities. I believe in all the Bible says about God. But what I didn't realize was how that intersected with my insecurities. What I didn't realize is how I approach things. And I just kind of brushed them under, because when you're leading at a high level, you're just seeing success, right? You're leading, you're going. Well, those insecurities begin to be covered over by all of the makeup, if I could say, or the dirt of, well, things are good. Look what's happening. Look at all the success. And what I did in what happened in the midst of the journey was Mark kind of guided me into where does your insecurity really lie? What's really behind the surface? What's under the dirt? What's really going in the foundation of your life? And then you realize, well, man, until you face your false self, you don't even know what battles to face. Like, you don't even know what battle you're going to win. You just think you're winning, but in the end, you're facing a false self. And so I came face to face with that, man, I was a people pleaser. I was someone who was performance driven. I was afraid of a bad outcome. And so I overcompensated by controlling. I learned all of these things. And what I realized, man, these are insecurities that I never even talked about, never even noticed. I didn't want to face them. And so the mirror brought this reality and showed, okay, I've got these insecurity, and now I got to confront them. Now I got to face them. And that led into the journey of, I remember Mark saying something, and I know, Chris, you said it, but you can't shift what you won't see. You can't. You can't shift what you won't see. And so I had to see it first. And then I realized, wait, I've been an unhealthy leader even in the midst of success. This unhealth didn't just come in a moment. It came in a lifestyle that I'd never dealt with. And so that began the journey of saying, okay, what does this insecurity look like? Now let's confront that insecurity. Now let's make the shift so that now I can have a new identity. What does that look like to live out that new identity? And that was the journey for me, where all of a sudden, even as a pastor that could preach the truths of the Bible, I was like, lights on, eyes open. This life raft is it. I've been drowning, didn't even realize it. And now, wait, I can get on the shore and stand and be confident in who God made me. Absolutely. And that was the journey.
Man, thank you. Beautiful. I mean, I think that speaks to something so powerful that I hear in an objection from people, like, wait a second, this is a process. Like, you're telling me who to be, and you're going to conform me. No. This process customizes and maps to you to help you discover who you really are. And so I think that's why sometimes when people take our IFQ and their results come back to them, they're like, how do I get my number on my fear down? How do I get these to zero? And I'm like, well, that's not how it works, because there's always something happening in our lives that we're learning how to live out that secure identity. And to have you in this experience, lock in like you did, what a gift to hear about it and to see that at such a key time. What for you, how would you best put to words, like, you finished the coaching program, you finished Figure That Shift Out, you're done meeting with Mark, and you're then kind of looking back on the journey. What were one or two things that stood out more than anything else?
Oh man, one or two things. It's probably an entire book. Well, I think there is actually a book, Figure That Shift Out. But I think for me, the bridge between what true identity looks like and how that approaches decisions, community, how it approaches circumstances and trial, how it approaches that for me was that shift really happened was I saw myself, okay, here's where I'm at. This is the way I see. Okay, this is what it looks like to actually be healthy. And so it was almost like the permission to not have to be what I was, to admit, okay, this is where how I've gotten here. These are the things I probably have always struggled with. And in my most unhealthy moments, I saw them, but didn't identify them because I didn't want to face them. To now being able to say, okay, I see it.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, when you see it, you can't unsee it. So now in conversations, I hear it in myself and I say, uh-oh, I'm proving right now.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-oh, I'm hiding right now. Even in my marriage, my wife notices now when I'm proving or hiding.
Dang it.
Yeah, it's like, why did you do this to me, Chris and Mark and Sideshift? You know what? But in some ways, it's like now I see it, and that's a totally different world when you're a leader, and now you say I can see it, and then also you pick it up in other people, and that's not meant as a point the finger. It's meant to be like, wait, we're on the journey together, and this process takes time to notice it, correct it, reframe it, and now see it different. And I think the fear of having to face it. And then once you face it, to say, okay, we've been given the ability, obviously through God, to be able to see who we really can be and now shift that focus. And for me, that sounds simple, but that process has been eye-opening to say, okay, now I see it. I actually do prove myself sometimes. I got to stop. I don't have to prove anything. Oh, wait, I actually hide myself. I'm hiding right now. Let me just be authentically real right now. There's freedom in that, right? There's freedom when you live in that. And as a leader, man, I'm learning to live in that freedom. I'm learning what it looks like to not prove or hide, but to live in that victory that's ours, so that we're not drowning in the ocean. We're swimming in the ocean, and we're enjoying what we have as leaders. So,
yeah, thank you. I mean, for me, what's so meaningful about this is you're already speaking to this reality, like the work keeps going,
right.
You hit new levels, there's new devils, there's new insecurities, new things to work through. And we're not navel gazing and finding ourselves in this place of a paralysis of analysis. It's just cooperating. It's being the tree, like we talk about. And I'm recognizing this is what's happening right now around me. And I think what's really profound, and just for listeners to really be able to contextualize this, so we have Site Shift, we work with leaders and companies. We also have 15 and is what it's called, where we serve churches and pastors and ministry leaders. And I think in the business world, they would look at that world and say, and I'm going to want to keep going with you. So I'll say this will be my hopefully last question. We'll see. They would look at that world and they would say, but those people, they're doing that kind of work. They're not leading for validation. They've got to be leading for impact. There's no way insecurity exists in that world. I'd love to hear like what you would say to that and what your dream might be for people to take away from this podcast into that world.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think if you're not in, the church world or the Christian world, or maybe you're in the Christian world, but you're not in, you're working in the secular world as a Christian. I think you look at, especially, okay, as pastors, I think it's actually easier to lose your identity because there's so much of what you do is about your image, right? People are looking at you, people are listening to you, people are looking for wisdom. And what I learned in my journey with Site Shift is, every great leader has to lose a little bit of this image to gain his identity, right? You got to lose your image to gain identity to really know who you are. And I think it's easy to point the finger and say, oh, well, they don't struggle with insecurity. No, actually, we as church leaders think everything we do has eternal impact, even if it doesn't. We think it does. Like everything we do is so important and critical, and man, nothing else compares to it. Well, what that does is create importance in ourselves. And so we think, well, man, I'm pretty important because I'm dealing with something that God would desire. And that doesn't downplay the importance of it. And it doesn't downplay that it is eternal and kingdom-minded. But what it does is actually it makes it a little bit dangerous for us, because now we can build our lives on what we do quicker than understanding who we are. And I think as a pastor, man, it was really, I didn't have to search very far to say, man, I'm pretty confident in what I do. What I do matters.
Mm.
Well, yeah, but I'm still not what I do. I'm who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I think where insecurity lies in both of those worlds is the same. It's, man, I can find my identity in, okay, I'm helping these people and I'm saying all the right things. But in the end, that identity really is wrapped in what I'm doing, not in who I am.
Mm.
And so I think as a pastor, it actually becomes even more, in some ways, dangerous that we can find our purpose in what we're doing and forget who we really are. In the same way, if you're running a Fortune 500 company, man, you can find yourself busy doing a lot of great things that are, man, the P&L looks great and the stockholders are happy. They're looking at the stocks and going, man, way to go. Here's your bonus. You can find identity in that, but at the same time, it's not who we are. And that's the difference with identity is you almost have to get rid of that image to gain identity. Mm. And for me, I think, those worlds are so parallel in that way. And in fact, I would say as a pastor, there can be more dangerous because we really do believe that everything we're doing it matters. Yeah. And so we just do. But in the end, who am I really?
Yeah.
And so that overlap, I think Sight Shift showed me that. Wait a minute, I really was about what I did, not just who I was. I could preach about who I was, but who I really was, I don't know if I was living that to the fullest. I knew I wasn't. And so Sight Shift gave me the eyes to see it consistently. So now in the journey, I see it, I can correct it, I can shift it, and I can lead with impact, not from insecurity.
So when you look at like where you are now and you think about like, oh, I see the fruit of this, paint that out for me a little bit and what it looks like, maybe life, marriage, wherever it takes you.
Yeah, my life has been totally transformed and revolutionized by Sight Shift. I say that not as a sales pitch, but just as reality, because all of us lead in places of validation where we're trying to validate, we're trying to find our identity in other things. And I think for me, the moment I saw that, now what happens is now that I see that and I've made this shift and I constantly am trying to, okay, I got to surrender that. I got to make this shift. I got to keep looking this way, not proving you're hiding. My marriage has improved. I'm leading and loving my wife with more confidence because I know who I am. As a father, I see my kids differently. As a Christian, I see the Father differently. I see God differently. I see his care. I believe he writes good stories. He wants us to see who we really are. I think in business, I think of my leadership among people. It's totally different when I'm leading them from a place of security. Why? Because now I know who I am. And so it doesn't matter what they bring me. I'm not moved by it. And so I can lead them more effectively, which then makes them better. And so now there's I would just say this as a leader. And again, wherever you're from, if you want to be a multiplying leader, you got to be a secure leader. You got to be a leader who is, man, you know who you are. You're able to shift when you're proving and hiding. And now you're able to lead people. And what happens is they pick up on it. And I've had so many people say, Dave, I can tell, man, the way you're coming across is different. Like what's going on with you? Well, yeah, I'm not insecure anymore. I'm leading from a place of impact, not validation. And so people see it and then they want to know what's going on. And that gives me a chance to say, oh, well, you got to see where your identity is. And I just see that all the time. People see that. They pick up on it. It's different. It's not the norm. And so as a leader, no matter where you're at, what you're doing, man, what would it look like to lead from multiplication because you're leading from impact? It's totally different.
Yeah, man, I'm hearing that. It draws me in to this reality that there's more. There's more. And for anyone listening to this, I have no doubt they've heard something you've said and they're holding on to that word or their phrase or that phrase in their head or heart, and it's going to turn around in their mind for some time. And our hope is, if I could speak for you, Dave, on this, I believe it's your hope. This is who I know you to be, that whatever you take away from today, that you don't let that go, that you hunt that down, you wrestle that down, you explore it. And what a treat to have you here today and share so vulnerably of your story, so thoughtfully, and can't wait to get this episode out and help a lot of people. Thank you. Thanks for listening in as we dove into the story of transformation as someone went through Figure That Shift Out. We're celebrating 10 years, 10 stories, and I don't want it just to be something you listen to. Explore what might be possible. Imagine how far you might go in your leadership. And join one of our Figure That Shift Out coaching groups, work with one of our certified coaches. I look forward to hearing about the transformation that you go through as a result of Figure That Shift Out.